Welcome back, Focus Learners. We're diving into another explainer today, and we're looking at something that is literally the bedrock of almost all life on Earth. We're going to explore plants, but not just as, static pieces of greenery sitting on your windowsill. We're looking at them as dynamic, pulsing, completely solar-powered factories. By the end of this, I promise you'll look at every single leaf you walk past in a totally different way. To set the stage here, just think about this for a second. When you look at a massive, towering oak tree, where exactly does all that physical mass come from? Back in 1648, a scientist named Jan van Helmont had the same question. He basically weighed a willow tree and its soil over 5 years, and he found out the plant gained a ton of mass, but the dirt, the soil weight, barely changed at all. So no, plants do not eat the soil. Instead, they build those massive, heavy trunks, mostly out of water and completely invisible gas pulled right out of the air. Crazy, right? And that wild realization brings us right to this brilliant little chemical equation. Think of this as the ultimate blueprint for our solar factory. You take 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, mix in 6 molecules of water, blast it with the energy of sunlight, and boom! You produce 1 molecule of glucose, which is our sugar, plus 6 molecules of oxygen. It's perfectly balanced. It shows you exactly what raw materials are going in and what absolutely vital products are coming out. Okay, let's dive into this. Level 1. Roots, stems, and leaves. We're going to start our 3D descent from the very top, the macro anatomical level. We're looking at the visible plant organs that act as the main supply lines for our factory because, raw materials have to be gathered before any manufacturing can actually happen. First up, the subterranean root system sucks up water and dissolved minerals from the soil. But wait, how does all that water get all the way up to the top canopy of a giant tree? Well, it practically defies gravity, using capillary action. Relying on liquids' natural properties like cohesion and surface tension, water gets pulled straight up through these specialized microscopic pipelines in the stem called the xylem. And finally, that water is delivered right up to the leaves, which are positioned perfectly to catch the sun. And speaking of those leaves, notice how the blades are physically engineered to intercept as much solar radiation as possible. There's actually a huge difference between those simple, kind of oval-shaped early leaves, which are called cotyledons, and the fully developed, complex, mature leaves. As the plant grows, it dynamically optimizes its surface area. It's basically trying to act as the most efficient solar panel it possibly can. Now, attaching that biological solar panel to the stem is a structural stalk called the petiole. And the petiole is absolutely crucial here, because it's not totally rigid. It actually lets the leaf blade flutter around in the wind. This physical movement is such a brilliant adaptation. By fluttering, it actively sweeps away the boundary layer of stagnant, oxygen-heavy air that just sits on the leaf surface. So it cools the leaf down and constantly brings in a fresh supply of carbon dioxide. Moving right along to level 2, inside the leaf's anatomy. All right, imagine we're shrinking down now. We're passing right through the leaf's waxy, waterproofing upper layer, the cuticle, and entering the internal cellular architecture of the leaf itself. Right in the middle tissue, called the mesophyll, we find this brilliant physical contrast. The top layer is the palisade mesophyll. These are tightly packed, column-shaped cells stacked together like little building blocks to catch the absolute maximum amount of direct light. But look right beneath that, you've got the spongy mesophyll. This layer looks completely different. It's this open, loose, honeycomb kind of structure with big air spaces. And that specific design is what allows gases, like carbon dioxide and oxygen, to easily diffuse all throughout the leaf's interior. Now, what's really interesting is how those gases actually get inside that honeycomb structure in the first place. They enter through these tiny, microscopic pores on the underside of the leaf called stomata. And every single stoma is surrounded by 2 specialized guard cells. You can think of these guard cells as dual bow-shaped valves that actively inflate and deflate. By shifting their shape, they can open and close the pore. It's a perfect system to regulate carbon dioxide intake while minimizing any water loss from transpiration. Which brings us to level 3, entering the chloroplast. So, we've seen the rooms of the factory, now it's time to actually meet the machines. We're plunging even deeper into one of those tightly packed palisade cells to find the chloroplasts. These right here are the true biochemical assembly lines of our solar-powered factory. Inside a chloroplast, the workload is split into 2 very distinct microscopic zones. First, you have the thylakoid membranes, these specialized folded structures where the light-dependent reactions actually happen. And second, surrounding all those membranes is a fluid-filled space called the stroma. This is where the light-independent reactions, better known as the Calvin cycle, take place. Next up, level 4, light-dependent reactions. Let's descend directly into those thylakoid membranes. Things happen at literal lightning speed here, as the plant converts sheer solar energy into usable chemical energy. It's a rapid, pulsing biophysical process. It all kicks off with a single photon of sunlight. This photon strikes a protein complex called photosystem II, specifically a reaction center known as P680. That intense solar energy hits a pair of chlorophyll molecules and literally blasts an electron completely free, boosting it to a super high-energy excited state. And before it can fall back down, that supercharged electron is instantly caught by a primary acceptor molecule named pheophytin. But here's the catch. Now that P680 reaction center is missing an electron, it has to replace it immediately. To pull that off, the plant performs an absolute miracle of chemistry called water photolysis. It takes a regular water molecule and enzymatically rips it apart just to steal its electrons. And the byproduct of splitting that water? Oxygen gas? Yeah, the very oxygen you and I are breathing right this second is literally just the exhaust from this exact microscopic step. Meanwhile, our excited electron gets passed down an electron transport chain, sort of bouncing along and losing a little bit of energy with every step. But none of that energy is wasted. It's used to pump protons across the membrane, filling up the inner space of the thylakoid like a highly charged battery. These protons desperately want to diffuse back out to balance things, and their only escape route is through a highly specialized enzyme called ATP synthase. As the protons flow through it, they physically spin the ATP synthase like a tiny molecular turbine, forging our very first chemical battery molecule, ATP. This whole incredible process is known as chemiosmosis. Having done all that heavy lifting, the electron arrives exhausted at the very next station, which is photosystem 1, or P700. But the sun isn't done with it yet. A second photon strikes photosystem 1, blasting our tired little electron right back up into a super excited, high-energy state. This time, the electron gets sent down a much shorter transport chain to create NADPH, which is our second fully charged chemical carrier. Let's move to level 5, the Calvin cycle, and see how this all builds together. Okay, so we have our energy carriers. We're now leaving the thylakoid membranes behind and floating out into the fluid stroma for the final stage. Historically, you might have heard this part referred to as the dark reactions, but honestly, that is a massive scientific misnomer. The Calvin cycle does not happen in the dark. In fact, it can't operate for very long at all without light, because it absolutely relies on the short-lived, highly unstable ATP and NADPH fuel that we literally just finished making in the light-dependent steps. The Calvin cycle actually unfolds in 3 really elegant phases, and it all kicks off with this incredibly hardworking enzyme named rubisco. During the first phase, called fixation, rubisco essentially grabs that invisible carbon dioxide gas right out of the air and physically attaches it to a molecule called RUBP. Next, we hit the reduction phase, where the ATP and NADPH we made earlier basically dump all their stored energy into the system to modify these molecules. Finally, the regeneration phase resets the entire cycle so the factory can just keep running indefinitely. So the crucial point is this. What is the actual payoff of this whole cycle? The final output is a high-energy sugar molecule known as G3P. Through the Calvin cycle, the plant has successfully taken transient, fleeting solar energy and locked it safely away into a stable, long-term carbohydrate. That sugar is going to be used to build the plant's roots, its stems, its fruits, and the energy stores that literally power life on Earth. It really shifts your entire perspective, doesn't it? I mean, from the macro architecture of a fluttering leaf all the way down to the microscopic spinning turbine of an ATP synthase enzyme, the plant is just a flawless machine. If every single breath of oxygen we take and every bite of food we eat traces directly back to this specific microscopic factory, it leaves you wondering, what other invisible biophysical cycles are secretly churning away right now, powering our world? Thanks for joining me on this Explainer, Focused Learners. Keep observing, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next one.